You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today, Friday.
Can you believe it's Friday? Sure.
I
days go by.
cannot. I usually used to not like Fridays when I would do long runs, because then that would be like one of the hardest days of the week. But now I love Fridays because tomorrow is Saturday and I can actually do Saturday stuff.
You're so good.
And you?
I don't have it just all melded into one. I don't even realize what's a week and what's a week. It's all just one thing, really. Yeah.
I get that feeling.
Yeah.
I think we should start off today just by checking in with what we did last week. So
yeah.
Last week we were having a look at our shadow selves and going deeper into the aspects of ourselves that we sometimes don't look at properly. And our artist state that Sammy left us was an hour of doing something for yourself, but in a physical way. So using your physical body, getting all of that working, which might be good for people stuck on the couch. And I would also like to quickly recap that exploration exercise we did. So, last week we're shining a light on our lost selves, and my exploration exercise resulted in me having to face. Let me quickly recap. The exploration exercise was kind of finding words that trigger you and that you wouldn't want written about you in a newspaper or spoken about you on television. And mine was, I think my predominant one was being, selfish, doof, or uninteresting, and boring. Yeah, uninteresting, doof, and selfish are really triggering for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of processed those words and those triggers. What did you process, Ami?
I had like a whole list. And
yes.
I know the three that I would probably share would be Sam is an embarrassment.
Oh, that's horrible. I know.
The next one is Sam is blind to herself. And the last one, my one was, I know these are all harsh. These are the least harsh of the harsh ones. And the last one was Samantha's incapable.
I know. Mine, I also had really, really tough ones that I don't want to share. But I hope that everyone went to the toughest parts possible and really faced that. And my artist date was just a stretchy yoga session, which I did half an hour of, and then I did half an hour of just kind of, I did the meditation not meditation, the moment of mindfulness that you led. Kind of checking in with myself in a still environment, because I haven't really gone into my body and felt about how I'm feeling about things and niggles.
Yeah.
And you?
I did exactly the same. So I did yoga, and I have been doing it, but I think it's, it's very easy to do yoga as a form of exercise and not necessarily to engage the full sense of you're doing this mindfully. So that was important to do. And when I did do that, a lot of things were triggered for me as well. It's reminded me of being back on tour. And just being physically, just like the stretching that we used to do, those very focused warm-up sessions that we used to do. And then that brought up a whole bunch of things. And Carmi, this led me into like thinking of our conversation and why we went into this next topic. And that was, when I came back from tour, I had a much harder time adjusting to settling back in than you did, I know. And obviously it's because you have been touring for like a good 10 years. Me, on the other hand, I haven't. And so this was like a really new experience, especially after playing a role for so long. And so the adjusting back into nothing after being really busy and hectic with the show, which I loved. Coming back to doing nothing because everything was cancelled. And then one of the biggest things that I was doing, because I do a lot of internalized exercises, and one of them, as you know, was I spoke about last week, and we will explore, is the Enneagram. And I redid the test of the Enneagram, which is a personality test. And I realized that my answers were coming out very differently, and my the results actually came out differently. And that was mind-blowing to me. That shocked me.
What?
Completely.
Really?
Totally. Yes. And that's what made me go, my God, what is going on here? Because I'm not really liking myself. I'm not liking myself separate from the show. My sanctuary doesn't feel like me. I don't feel like me. And then there was this little penny drop that happened. And it was this. It was, if behavior and mood and emotion, and this is what I wrote in my journal, if behavior and mood and emotion can be altered by thoughts and beliefs, and if as a result of that you attract different experiences to you, then playing a character for a long period of time cannot not affect you as an individual and your life. And then this led into the pondering.
Amazing. So pondering for today. Here we go.
Yeah, so this was, as I say, like an incredibly interesting concept to me. You know, that taking on a character, and as any self-respecting actor or actress would do, you do so from the inside, right? And so, you know, comes the experience of like really working on a character, doing that whole rehearsal process, really getting to know the character, and so well that when you're on stage, you can actually improvise as the character, then you know the character well. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, I really experienced this fully with Velma in Chicago, was the fact that I would put the costume on, I would put the wig on, I would put the makeup on, and boom, there she was. It suddenly changed the way I walked, changed the way I thought, changed my speaking, everything just happened. It was like, boom, there she is, you know? And so this made me think about, oh my gosh, maybe that is kind of like what is happening to me. It's almost like the separation from myself and the character is not clear. So I've almost adopted this persona of Velma, you know? And so because of that, I thought, okay, let's explore what method acting is. All right. Because we know that like, a lot of film actors really go that route of really delving into a character and like almost losing themselves. So first of all, the definition that I came to of, and this is just from Wikipedia and stuff, the method acting is a realism-based preparation applicable to all roles. So character actors can use the method acting technique as well. However, it's mostly associated with realistic dramatic performances. It's a technique or type of acting in which an actor aspires to encourage sincere and emotionally expressive performances by fully inhabiting the role of the character. It's an emotion-based technique. Obviously, it was further developed and brought to America in the 30s by Lee Strasberg and Elia Kazan. And, you know, Com's like, most times people think that, you know, musical theater, you're not really acting. So like all of these techniques are used for like actors, serious actors, and not really for us. And so I thought I was going to ask you, like, what's your approach to approaching, what's your process to approaching a character?
I never had any acting training. So my way into a character was always through truth, going within to find that feeling that the character was dealing with within my own self, my own experience, and then rooting myself in that feeling and operating from there outward. So if my character was feeling sadness or absolute despair, then I would go to a place in my life where I felt that, and then I would access that feeling, remember it, an emotional memory, and then recreate the emotion that I felt in that feeling, but suited to the situation that the character is in. So I don't know how to act outside in. I only know how to act inside out.
Yes, but I mean, that's very funny because you actually are employing like the techniques of method acting. Because you're like going back.
Yes, people are like, but you're not a method actor. I'm like, well, I mean, I don't go and actually immerse myself as this person because I've never done a film role or something that has allowed me to do that. But I don't see how anyone cannot method act to a certain degree, because I don't know how to act outside in.
No,
I
I'm
only know how
exactly
to
the same.
inside out.
Totally. But I mean, for me, that what you're saying is like remembering and bringing up a personal experience in your past of like being sad. I've been introduced to that, but I've never done it that way. For me, like you, I'm much more instinctive. And so I approach a character as well from the inside out. And it definitely is like just jumping right in. Like, and I've never had to go, oh, let me think about a time when I was sad. It just automatically, I'm sad. I can feel it straight away, the emotion. I don't have to think of time. Do you know what I mean? So I've never even employed that technique of like method acting, because that's a very method thing to do. Remember the time when you felt this way and bring it up, and how did it feel? For me, it's just been instinctive. There I am, access, go, jump balls to the wall, and you're there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and that's interesting. It depends on how accessible the emotion is. If it's an emotion that I deal with every day, then I can just go into that and not have to think about a past experience. But if it's a past experience emotion, then I sometimes have to really go and dig and find a way to make myself cry or make, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think it's pretty much the way we think in real life, you know. So like as you're going into a character as well, you really do have to, I mean, and the director helps you do this. You like delve in, you go to like, what are they really, why are they like they are? What has happened in their story? What is their background? Okay, that would inform how they think. Then that would inform exactly like cognitive behavioral therapy. That's how they think. That's why they respond the way they do. That's how they act out when their needs are not being met. What is their baseline behavior? Okay, and then always, this is what the fun part, when you start to get to this part, when you go, okay, so like that would affect, like I can immediately, with that information in mind, this is how it would affect the physicality, and the walk suddenly is developed. And then within that, it's like, oh my gosh, that like I can feel the voice would be lower, or it would sit higher, or whatever it is, in the cadence of the way you would talk. It suddenly just all melds into one. And I think it almost happens like process by process, but for me, it's always been very instinctive. But it's just like exactly that feeling that makes me go, oh my God, that must affect you on a cellular level. It has to. Because you're doing exactly what we're doing in life. You're just recreating another life for yourself, alternatively, alongside of yourself while you're playing this part. It's insane.
And that is, I think that's where we kind of, where the lines start getting a bit blurred, especially, and we'll talk about this a bit more next week, but especially when you have to then separate yourself again from that character. Day after day after day.
I know that you've done a lot of like research as well on method actors. Like we were talking about, you know, certain people that you know have really delved into it. Do you want to discuss
I really enjoyed. I mean, I've had a look at method acting, as you say, Swami. You've given us the definition, and I really love Jim Carrey. And when I watched Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, I was really immersed in that experience. As we all, if anyone's watched that, please, you know, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, go and watch it. It should be on Netflix still, I think. It's basically how Jim took on Andy Kaufman. He starred in The Man in the Moon, which was a movie about Andy Kaufman, and The Great Beyond is the documentary that follows him going into this character. And he had this like out of body experience where he like became Andy. And even Andy's parents would talk to Jim, and they started calling him Andy and like feeling like it was Andy. And they even said, like, I can't even think that this is not Andy, because Andy died. So even Andy's parents were like, this is so bizarre. And Jim Jim refused to be called Jim. He would only be called Andy. 24 hours a day, he went into Andy Kaufman. And that was like one of the scariest things to think about as an actor, and how far he went with that.
You see, the thing as well, what really got me about that documentary, and thanks for bringing it up for me, was the fact that he had also only ever played characters. And I don't know what his formal training was, but he also just used to act silly and mad and do whatever. I don't know if he ever really had a formal sort of process. And this was the first time he was playing a particular person. And he just delved right in. So again, it was an instinctive thing for him to go to that place. And so most times when people employ method acting, they have like psychologists that they work with, and they know they're going into method acting. So I'm going into character now, I'm doing this. For me, like what I found was the insidious part about what we do is sometimes employing this without even knowing that we're doing it. Do you know what I mean? So for us, not even thinking this is what we're doing, but because we're doing it night after night after night after night, you don't realize when you're actually crossing the boundaries, when the character is becoming part of you. And like,
Yes.
For me, it's the idea of art imitates life. So every role that I've ever experienced has come to me at a particular point in my consciousness. So, and I've sort of manifested it, and then I've brought whatever that is in myself to the role, only at the level that I could. You know what I mean? And so it can be cathartic at times, but I think just recently, having done a lot of shadow work on myself, it was the first time of playing a character, which was Velma, who had characteristics within her that were in me. I had recognized already, but I'd never fully explored. And so it was almost like the first time I wasn't afraid to go there fully. And it really did affect me in my life, in my day-to-day interactions with people. I dealt with situations like I would never normally. She was like this armor that I would carry with me. And I'd never had that experience before, because I think in other times, I'd been very aware of my ego being separate from the character's ego, either because I was afraid to go fully or because I was more concerned with doing the role right, what the audience would think, what the director would think. And in this instance, I just wasn't Velma. That's what it felt like.
You see, I think this is where we differ. And we'll also talk more about that next week. But things, the line, but now going into the character. So I become, over a period of time, very exhausted by having to recreate emotions on a daily basis. And that's usually joyous emotions. I become very exhausted by creating happiness. So if I have to be like, hi, yeah, we're all in this together, that's harder for me than getting sad, because I think I have a melancholic personality. It's not something that you can see. I mean, I don't walk around with a cloud above my head, but I have a melancholic personality type. So, and I'm an introvert more than an extrovert, so that's exhausting for me. But I don't have difficulty separating myself from the character so far. I mean, Sami, you really have played really different, beautiful roles, and dark roles as well. Yeah. I don't think I've perhaps played a role that's as dark as that, and for such a long period of time. Like, I know Sally Bowles I got to do that, thankfully. I understudied Sammy in that show, and I got to do that for a couple of shows, but it was not, and I must tell you, when I did that role, it was so tough. It was so tough. I don't know how Sammy did that for freaking how long, I don't know. But I didn't have that repetitive, like recreating, I had like, I think a couple of performances. So perhaps for me, it's just an experience thing. I haven't done it yet.
No, I don't think it was that necessarily. I think, I mean, if I was maybe fully comfortable with my, I mean, this is for me. I think with Sally, I found myself, it was cathartic every night, but then I'd have to pull it back and then go, I couldn't associate with people. I was like petrified of anything going wrong. And I just wanted to be on my own as well. And I realized I was exhausted, but I wasn't physically exhausted. I was emotionally and spiritually exhausted. And I kept thinking, if I just retracted and slept more, I would be revived. But it actually wasn't that. It was my emotional state that needed reviving. So
that's how I feel often. I feel an emotional exhaustion, and it's not necessarily that my body is tired, but my body is tired.
No. Yes. It's just a whole being tired, because you can be really, really busy and your body doesn't get tired, but it's this emotional drain on your body.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd like to go into, on that note, I wish we had so much more time to like delve into this stuff, but I'd like to go into our exploration exercise for the day. And that is it kind of, I don't know. I also want to say that if you're not an actor or you're not somebody who does acting, that's why our pondering was going, embracing ourselves through creativity. So this could be done with a lot of different forms of art or expression. I also wanted to quote something from Marilyn that said, this is a Jim Carrey quote. He says, "Before I do anything, I think, well, what hasn't been seen? Sometimes that turns out to be something ghastly and not fit for society. And sometimes that inspiration becomes something that's really worthwhile." And this is another Anthony Hopkins one. I just want to double check. Yeah. So this one says, "I think the healthy way to live is to make friends with the beast inside oneself. And that means not the beast, but the shadow, like we spoke about last week, the dark side of one's nature. Have fun with it. And that is to accept everything about ourselves." So it's interesting. That's just, it's not something that's foreign, especially to actors, I think. Anyway, exploration exercise today is about forgiveness. So last week we had a look at some aspects of ourselves literally in the mirror and talked about things that we have to face and that we keep suppressing. But what if you can't transmute it into a positive, or you can't embrace it and accept a quality about yourself? So I think that perhaps what we can then do is, if you've got qualities you just cannot embrace, then the next thing is that we have to forgive. And we can't forgive if we can't process and grow. We can't process and grow past anything if we can't forgive that. And often we have to actually forgive ourselves for a lot. We don't realize how much we hold against ourselves. And why are we talking about this? And how does this relate to acting or finding shadow selves? Well, because in order to embrace this quality that you once rejected in someone else or in a character, you need to forgive that person or yourself or the character, which means you kind of embrace that in all of humanity and realize how accessible it is to each and every one of us, actually. So the exploration exercise is basically to write a letter to yourself, forgiving yourself for the parts of you that you can't embrace or truly understand. Okay, so it's kind of an extension of last week. I'm going to pop this lovely visual up here. And then just to take a second and just write these words. So I, and then insert your name. So mine would look like I, Carmen Pretorius. And then you say, "Forgive myself for the quality of," and you insert the quality, full stop. "I know that I am worthy and lovable, even though I am an example of this quality, or I exemplify this quality." And you would do that then with anything that comes up this week or that you wrote down last week that you couldn't really transmute or embrace. So I, insert your name, forgive myself for the quality of, insert the quality, and I know that I am worthy and lovable even though I exemplify this quality.
Beautiful. It's almost like an exploration of your last exploration exercise of talking to yourself in the mirror. So it's like, if it didn't transmute then, it's like a further transmutation.
Yeah, it is. It's the next step. If you can't really deal with it or embrace it, then forgive it and move on. Own it.
And speaking of moving on, we're going to move on to heart space right now. Thanks, Coms. And again, we got a couple of cumies. I love that people are writing in. But Carmen, I chose this one because I know you will love to answer
I
this.
love,
I have no
yes.
idea. Okay, you'll love
Thank
this. Okay.
you. Thank
This
you,
one
Bronwyn.
says-
Thank you, Tasha.
Yes, Tasha. Okay. Aw. Okay, so comms. This one says, and I'm going to give it to you. What about those people who are unable to put themselves in anyone else's shoes at all? And they've got in brackets psychopaths or sociopaths.
Hey,
Hey.
that opens a can of worms right there.
I'm calling all psychologists.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not a psychologist, so
But you are like a
we can
resident.
weigh in, right?
Yeah.
So I have this fascination with psychopaths and sociopaths, and I've read a lot about them. I also love the Crime Channel and have watched every show on most criminals and criminal psychology. Doesn't make me an expert, but this is my opinion, anonymous, is that the words psychopath and sociopath are often interchanged with each other, and they're often used in the wrong context. But according to the definition of a psychopath, this is someone who is born without the ability to feel empathy.
Yeah.
So we cannot hold that against that person. It's like you can't like kick someone who's blind and go, why can't you see? So you can't kick a psychopath and go, why can't you feel? Like, that's not
I'm
fair,
laughing
right?
because Carmen, you are crack me up, but that is so true. And I'm not laughing because
No, I know, but that person is incapable of. It is a birth defect. And more research shows, yes, you can create narcissists and you can create people that are sociopaths, not interchangeable with the word psychopath, depending what school of thought you believe. But there's a way to create a monster and there's a way to be born a monster. It can be a birth defect. That's what I think. So we have to understand society has those people in it, and actually they serve an incredible role. They are the ones that can go up to the top and be a CEO and not worry and not feel anything and kick everyone on their way up there. And then they're the ones that end up changing the world because they're so ruthless and don't have emotion. There is a function. There is a function for them in society. I think we just have to, this once again goes back to childhood. If you're going to create an environment that is toxic and you are going to have a psychopath born into your family, let's say, if it is a birth defect, let's just say that, then if they become pathological, what does pathological mean? If they become murderers, if they've had a terrible childhood, then yes, I would blame the family. And then we got to look at raising our kids right. And even if they're born with birth defects or mental, emotional defects, hopefully we can embrace that. And once again, look at that and examine it and not shove the person away and hide them away, but try and rehabilitate them so that they can live in society productively.
I think you're right. I think also like we're all on a spectrum of mental health. We all are. It's a spectrum. And I think mental health has gotten such a bad rap. And basically, I mean, Hollywood is probably to blame as well a lot because they basically lump everyone into the same group. So everyone who has a mental illness or a mental sort of, I guess maladjustment or whatever is almost seen as dangerous and psychotic and, psychopathic, whereas that's really not the case. And most people can be rehabilitated and most people really do work well with medication and with therapy. So, I agree.
Yeah.
I think hopefully it becomes more mainstream and people will start to really see those people.
I mean, I still think that stuff's really misunderstood for everyone. But maybe just a food for thought to really start thinking about everyone then as being an expression of the human experience.
Nice. Great one. Good. Thanks, Carmen. See, I knew you'd crack it.
Well, I don't know if I've cracked it, but hey, there it is. That's my idea. That's my thought on the matter.
And furthermore, you have a quote of the day too, don't you?
Yeah, here we go. Oh my gosh, I thought you had a flute.
I've got a rain stick.
Wow, that's beautiful, Sami. Quote of the day. Another by Sir Anthony Hopkins. If you do things, whether it's acting or music or painting, do it without fear. That's my philosophy. Please, because nobody can arrest you and put you in jail if you paint badly, so there's nothing to lose. Right? A lot of the stuff we are worried to experience is because we don't want to go there. We worry. So can we move beyond our safety and what we perceive as pretty and likable, and move into a state of exploration and go into the dark sides of ourselves through whatever medium we do, whether you paint, do it through a painting, or watch TV shows and try and relate to the people. We are not separate beings. We are all one.
We are all one.
And
that leads beautifully, thank you, my lovely, into our moment of mindfulness. So in the last couple of episodes, we've explored mindfulness exercises from the observation point of the witness. So observing our thoughts from big mind and realizing that we're not our thoughts. We have thoughts, but we're not our thoughts. And then we've also gone last week on Friday, we explored the body and the physical sensations again with presence, by doing that body scan exercise and realizing that we are not our bodies. So we have bodies, but we're not our bodies and we're not our physical sensations. And so I thought it would be really beneficial for us to just explore our current emotions in like a similar way, in a really mindful way. So the idea would be not to focus on past experiences, but to become aware of your current emotional state. So the way you would do this is obviously just sit in a comfortable position, breathe deeply like we've done with all other mindfulness exercises. And the first step would be to pay attention to your feelings and to try and locate that feeling, sensation in your body. And the interesting thing is that when you do that, you might become aware of suddenly where that emotion is affecting you physically. Just quite a strange sensation. It's like, you've scanned your body, what has come up? Okay, now we're looking at it from the emotional space. What is the emotion? Where am I finding it? Is it my shoulders? Are they tensing up? It's so strange when you actually locate that emotions do affect the physical body. So that's the first aspect. The second part are, thoughts are not emotions. So get out of your thinking body and access the emotion. And just sit with it. So don't try and judge it with your thoughts, just sit with that emotion. Thirdly, to recognize that difficult emotions come and go. So that's one way of being able to face emotions and to sit with them. It's to realize that as painful as they are while they're there, they still ebb and flow, just like thoughts. Emotions ebb and flow. And if you can think of a boat in the water, sort of riding the crest of a wave, and then reaching the peak of that wave and then subsiding, pain does that, kind of ebbs and flows. You just have to sit with it. And you can say this mantra as well while you're experiencing this. You can say, this too shall pass. Because I don't know anybody who can say that one particular emotion has lasted for 10 years. They change. Next, you can say, okay, emotions occur in your body. And so pay attention to your body. Ask yourself as you sit with this, where am I feeling the sensation? So like we say, is it in the shoulders? Is it in the back? Is it in the lower back? Is it your stomach? And then from this vantage point, locate that witness again, who is observing the emotion. Who is it observing the emotion? And experience the physical sensation of the emotion on the body. And it would be almost like if you had to hold a muscle like this for 10 minutes, that's fine. But if you were holding it like that for 10 years, the muscle would be completely worn out. The same thing, if you're holding onto your emotion and it sits in that same body region for years and years and years, the tension that must create on your body is excruciating. So it would be great to actually finally move to fully accessing then big heart. So the heart center. So you can say again, I have emotions and I have emotional sensations, but I'm not my emotions. What is it in me that is witnessing the emotion. And a great way to do this physically is to breathe deeply, feel your chest expanding, to hold your breath, to even place your hands across your chest, across your heart, and then release. But to maintain the idea of that expanded heart. Another way as well is if you want to do tapping. It's EFT, it's tapping. It's almost if you want to tap on the sternum as you're breathing in as well. Just locate where your heart center is and just keep breathing. But either way, the mantra you speak to yourself is thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you really mean it, thank you. You can literally feel your heart sort of expanding and breaking open. So we're asking you to access your heart center with meaning and with a full heart. Yeah, that's quite beautiful. Thank you.
Amazing.
I'm going to actually post this as well. Here's a beautiful, it's a beautiful exercise as well. If you want to go to mindful.org, there are 10-minute meditations to work with really difficult emotions. So emotions that you're finding difficult to release.
Wow, that's very powerful.
Perfect.
Thank you, Sami. Here we go into takeaway. Okay, so I'll start with our affirmation for the day and then we'll go into journaling. So here it is, affirmation for the day. I know that all of me in my entirety is worthy of love, forgiveness, and healing. I know that all of me in my entirety is worthy of love, forgiveness, and healing.
Beautiful. I so love that you chose that green as well, like the heart space. It's green.
Oh, that word, really? That's
Yes.
amazing. That's synchronicity. And journaling today, as always, 5 things to be grateful for in the morning, and at night, 5 things that you're proud of yourself for achieving. Reflection on this topic. And then this week, have a look at, if you're not an actor, when you're watching TV, journal about characters that give you knee-jerk reactions and go a little bit deeper into that as to why. If you're an actor, if you're working on a piece or there's a character that you specifically want to explore, then do that. Anything to add, Sami?
I think that's genius. It's almost like you can, while you're watching Netflix or while you're watching reality TV, that's even a better one, is someone like Carmen says, it gives you a knee-jerk reaction. Actually go in. And once again, like we do with character processing, do this just as an exercise. Think of what might have made that person behave the way they do. What's their story? What are their belief systems? What are their emotions? And it's a beautiful way to actually step into the lives and the shoes of someone else and just to be able to create that sense of compassion and empathy and oneness. Beautiful.
That's it. And do we have anything else to take away today?
So basically, no, I think just keep doing everything that we've been setting into place. Keep doing your artist day. Just be fully present. And thank you for joining us on this journey.
Thanks, guys. Happy voyaging.
You cut me loose and set me free. You cut me loose.